Thanks everybody for coming to SIPCO again. It's great to see so many people in the room and so many core devs, so many community members. We're all here to improve Stacks together. So yeah, welcome to today's monthly steering committee update. Today's Friday, 27th of January, SIPCO number 30. So yeah, welcome everyone. Really appreciate you spending the time here. Here is where you can get a monthly update directly from the steering committee and some of us. So yeah, today we'll go through just a very brief introduction of what steering committee is about for those who hasn't been here before. And really, we want to go over what happened in January and also some of the SIP effort coming up. And I will leave the room for everybody to talk about anything they want to bring up at the end. So yeah, so let's go through today's agenda. So steering committee is sort of the last piece in the puzzle that approves the SIPs. So it's currently made of Jude, Marvin, and Gina. And I'm sure you know those guys. So maybe I'll give Jude, Marvin, or Gina the floor to talk a little bit about what steering committees is about in relation to the SIP process.
Sure, I can speak to that. So the steering committee's job is really just to be a steward and a shepherd to help carry out the desires of the community as manifested through one or more SIPs. So our principal job as the steering committee is to look at SIPs that have been recommended for activation and just make sure that they activate according to the rules activation. As a secondary task, you just make sure that there's no malicious intentions. So like you couldn't sock puppet a SIP into the activation step that stole someone's money, for example. Like we would have the power to say no to that. But that has never happened, and I hope it never happens for a long time at least. We never had to use that secondary ability, but the primary ability is just make sure that the process gets followed and is as open to anyone as we can make it.
Yeah, and I would say the steering committee is sort of like one of the last pieces in the process, but a ton of work happens in the background and just up until this point by the SIP editors, by the cabs. And so shout out to those folks who work really hard to get SIPs to a point where they can be essentially accepted.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much for the explanation. And for example, Stack Super 1 is actually a big SIP, and you went through the full process of getting approved. You'll see basically steering committee is sort of the last stop. The first step is to go through SIP editors, and then it moves to SIP, the consideration advisory board, and then it goes to steering committee for final approval. So those are the three key puzzles or three key groups that make up the reviewers of any core or non-technical SIP approval. Yeah, so those three groups are really key. So yeah, every week we talk about different topics, and every once a month, we invite the steering committee to talk about their stuff. So yeah, so please keep joining this session. You'll learn everything about SIP process and what SIP is all about. Yeah, so just want to give a bit of overview on what happened in January. So want to highlight some of the development that's been going on in January. So yeah, so some of the stuff going on, I would say one of the sort of more impactful one is the dust mining SIP from Trust Machine. It is pretty early still. Maddie has published some documents about the foundation idea, if you like. And so Trust Machine, as far as I know, is sort of working on sort of the development of it. So yeah, that's the sort of where we are with that. So hopefully we'll have more details and news and engagement over the next coming month about this particular impactful SIP. And the purpose of the SIP is to decentralize the mining, because we all know it is a critical piece to how a chain, how decentralized a chain is, in addition to many other metrics, including governance. It's also part of the way you can judge how decentralized a network is. So yeah, so that's the first one. And also in January, we had a lot of development actually over December and January from Werner. I think he's on the call, but I'll ask Marvin to give like an overview of what the SIP is about, if it's okay, Marvin.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Maybe we can ask Bruno to give an introduction first on this. I see he's on the call.
Oh yeah, why not? Yeah.
Sorry, do you want me to tell you anything about SIP 11?
Yeah, maybe give an overview of the purpose or the impact of this SIP, but also more specifically about the development that has taken place over the past 2 months. I know you worked a little bit on it during Christmas. Thank you so much for your effort. It is one of the really highlight of what the community SIP is about, how a community member can contribute towards this. So yeah, sort of a quick overview of what it's about, and also what development has taken place to move this SIP on over the past month or two.
All right, when I started working on the SIP, I was basically looking to get the custodial marketplace functions in a standard, because I know they're already being used a lot, and I was missing the SIP, and there was always some talk on GitHub about wanting a SIP for it, and then turned out there were a couple of other improvement proposals also related to improving the functions for NFTs and fungible tokens. So the first talks I had about this with Friedke, for example, and then Trevino from the Boom team, they thought might be a good idea to get a SIP, more of a collection of SIPs, and put them together in one SIP. Later we revised that, so having one SIP with a whole bunch of functions, probably it wasn't the best way to do this, so we split it up anyway. And now I'm basically still working on the marketplace SIP, but I have split it up in even that one in 2 pieces. So one is the standard for what's being used mostly at the time. That's I'm calling it in short Listin microstacks, the marketplace standard. And what I really want is a more generalized stacks improvement proposal, but that still needs some work on clarity and testing and stuff. That would be the Listin token marketplace standard. I'm just calling it that for now. And I think the main benefit of the SIP still in progress is that it could be one set of functions, and you can do everything with it. And by everything, I mean you can list any token on a marketplace and buy any token, or buy it with any token, of course, as long as it's approved. That's the idea. So any standard token from SIP 9, SIP 10, or SIP 13. And SIP 13 is quite new, so that's the semi-fungible token. And that's also where most of the work is still needed for a generalized marketplace, because we haven't had much experience with that yet.
Okay, thank you so much. Marvin, anything to add?
Yeah, thanks, Werner, for that great introduction. And maybe I can speak a little bit to what the benefit of such a SIP would be. Is that as Werner already said, there are a few on-chain marketplaces that work a little differently, and then if we can move towards something like this as an ecosystem, the upside is that when you list your token, you won't necessarily be siloed into a specific marketplace. So these marketplaces will be interoperable. If you list on one, it's the same mechanism to buy, and maybe it's not immediately apparent from the SIP itself. So maybe that's something Werner's still talking about, but you could have something in place where even if something is listed on one marketplace and another token that would be the counter offer to that whatever is listed on a different marketplace, you could have these two marketplaces settle that together, or you as a purchaser, you could then trigger that, right? Because they use the same mechanisms here. So I think that can be quite powerful. So I do hope to see more work on this SIP, and yeah, it's also nice to hear that Friedger is involved and thinking about this as well. So we have people with different backgrounds. I believe Mike was talking about that as well, and Jason from CityCoins. So
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
good program.
And all the work I've used in the SIP is also borrowed from Friedger, from Lucas, from you even, or at least the discussions, and Mike. So it's really a community SIP, basically.
Yeah, maybe I can add one more thought to this, because there'll be people that saying like, and I'm one of these people myself, where it's like, well, you want to do as little on-chain as possible, so why do you want to send a transaction to list something on-chain, right? Why do you want to do that and spend these fees, and maybe you have to cancel this order and go back? But I think there are still real upsides to doing something like that, because you get global visibility, right? If you list something and you do it through a generalized marketplace, that event can be picked up by any marketplace that integrates this, or even different marketplaces. So you can immediately see like, hey, this is the current offering that's for sale that I can purchase right now. Whereas marketplaces that have an off-chain component with signing messages, you have to rely on their order book and their proprietary API, for example. So there's still a real upside to listing something directly on chain. Maybe you would not do this if you're day trading lots of fungible tokens all the time. Well, maybe you will, but that global visibility, I think, is very important. And then when it's generalized, you can match it against any other marketplace. So very, very useful.
So it might be good, because I've been messing around with Ethereum. So they have a lot of aggregators, like that aggregate all the different marketplaces offers, and you can. But I think one problem there is like, you can't, if you want to list on OpenSea, like some OpenSea, I think OpenSea contract doesn't allow you to list in other marketplaces or trade other marketplaces. It was very weird to see that. So this might help sort of the censorship resist. Now, maybe you owning your contract. Does that come partly to this? Like maybe the creator owns more of the contract and lists anywhere?
Maybe you can let Werner speak to that, or I can share my thoughts on it.
Yeah, anybody, yeah.
Sure. Well, in that case, I would say, if you list on one of these marketplaces, and depending on how they're implemented, they might take the tokens temporarily or move them into some sort of escrow contract or something. But the beauty with this is, if this then is integrated, and there are many marketplaces, say Gamma and all the others, they all integrate this, then if you don't like how they do things, you can just move somewhere else, right? So I think that could be very powerful. And if you do have this standard, it also becomes a lot easier for different contracts, different smart contracts, to also interact with these marketplaces in a generalized sense. So think, for example, a DAO that interacts with this, right? You could have a DAO buy a token from one of these marketplaces, or you have a chain hook, right? That triggers a contract that moves the token a specific way. So it really makes the whole system more open. And yeah, for aggregators, it also becomes a lot easier to just watch for specific chain events and then see like, hey, a token was listed, a token was sold. etc. And you don't have to build specific mechanisms for, Gamma does it this way and Byzantium does it this other way.
Okay.
That will all be streamlined. Yeah.
Oh, sounds good. Because actually I haven't seen much aggregators on Stack, so maybe this will unlock new stuff, new builders.
Yeah, maybe one thing Werner can consider is also looking at how to emit events through print. There's another SIP in progress for that, specifically for metadata changes to NFTs, to tokens, to make it easier for aggregators to pick up on these events. So for a generalized marketplace, it could make sense to also use print in that way and specify a standard event that will then be very easy for aggregators to pick up on. So yeah, something worth considering too.
Thanks for the suggestion. I'm writing that down and making sure to follow up on that. Thanks.
Yeah, Werner, I'd just like to tell everybody in this room and people watching at home later that this is a truly community SIP, and through your effort that we are able to sort of get an idea of how to go about this, utilizing the community sort of feedback process. And I know you are in the SIP editors. I've invited into the SIP editor committee, and through your work, I think we can really help build out these processes or procedures to make future community SIPs process more streamlined and easier. So yeah, just want to say a big thank you and shout out for your work. And I know I'm in DM with you trying to figure out through your example how we can set the processes for others like yourself in the future to come. So yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so maybe I'll move on to the next one. So big development on SIP21, the SBTC. So maybe I'll give a very quick overview. If Ju can give a very quick overview about this particular SIP.
All right, so SIP21 is the first draft of building a trustless two-way peg on Bitcoin. This is the SBTC SIP. Lots of technical details in this one, but the gist of it is that with a few changes to the forking rules and with a couple changes to the way that stacking operates, we can make it so that stackers collectively control a peg wallet. This would allow users to transfer their Bitcoin into the Stacks blockchain by sending it to the peg wallet and have it materialize as a SIP10 token on the chain called SBTC. And then later they can redeem it back for the real Bitcoin by pegging it back out. Unlike a lot of the existing two-way peg systems, this one is fully decentralized, is powered by stackers, and as you know, anyone can be a stacker. All it requires is mining stacks, acquiring stacks through some means. You stack them, but then the twist to this is that instead of taking something like a wrapping fee or basis points of the Bitcoins you put in, stackers' reward for participating in the peg is simply their POX outputs now. If you don't participate, you don't get POX payments. So stackers are rewarded for being online and available to process peg-ins and peg-outs, regardless of what the economic value is of those peg-ins and peg-outs, which is a lot closer in design to how blockchains work. Like Bitcoin miners, for example, get paid Coinbase whether or not there's transactions to mine or not. So this would be likewise for the peg system. We believe that that gives us a competitive advantage because like no wrapping fees, and the stackers are incentivized to stay online and provide good service regardless of what the usage is. Lots of details I'm alighting right here about like why this works from an incentives perspective and like how miners cooperate with stackers to make sure that the peg remains alive, and how the system is able to tolerate, for example, if temporarily frozen peg and things of that nature. But I feel pretty good about this. Progress is moving along on a reference implementation. We hope to have a prototype out by the end of the month, or possibly early the beginning of February, so people can start playing around with it. It'll be built in a way that will allow live testing on the mainnet right now without changing anything, which is also kind of cool.
Amazing. So can people go on the GitHub and maybe, do you want people to go on the GitHub and maybe read the SIP and comment on the SIP?
Sure, please do. It's a draft because we want feedback.
Okay, great. We'll direct people there. But yeah, thank you so much. And the next one is signing with Stacks, SIP. Maybe Marvin, want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Is Frigger in the house?
I can't see
Doesn't
him.
look like it. No. Okay, that's okay. I just wanted to briefly bring this up because I know this SIP by Frigger is still in an early stage, but I thought it was interesting to give this a bit more visibility and maybe some more eyes. So sign in with Stacks is a draft SIP building on SIP 18, so the structured message format, to create a mechanism that allows you to sign into an app that has a server or centralized component, basically prove that you own this address, you are who you say you are, and this can be very useful still for a lot of applications that rely on some sort of centralized aspect. So a big example can be a marketplace. I think if you sign into Gamma right now, it asks you to sign a message that's basically readable text that will have some information like, hey, you're signing into Gamma, we're going to do some stuff, etc. So a standard like this or a SIP like this would standardize that and define a structure that can more easily and better be represented in wallets. So a wallet can show like, hey, you're about to sign into this application. These are the rights you'd be giving them or the information you'd be giving them. So I think it can be very useful to standardize that because it will make it easier for applications like that, which makes it easier for the end user to understand what it is exactly that they are doing. It also makes it harder to trick people into signing one of these messages that actually signs you into a different application. For example, because apps have been doing this differently, you might see a web app that just asks you to sign some message that is not really meaningful to a user. So if you could trick someone into signing that, you could authenticate with that service on someone else's behalf. So this standard makes that a lot harder. And also, finally, because wallets will also be able to easily understand this message, this structure, they could have additional safeguards in place and say like, well, if I'm going to get this message and the URL that is encoded in this message does not match the domain, then I'm going to reject it or show a warning or something like that. So it's really to the benefit of the end user. So yeah, Frigga has been working on that. Invite you to also take a look at it. It contains some more fields and it's just a specific type of SIP 18 message that would be very useful for this. So it shows a fun application of a meaningful application of what you could do with SIP 18 as well.
Yeah, cool. I dropped the link in the chat, so anyone feel free to take a look at it. And this is the one where Hero Wallet is integrating, right? And I see lots of GitHub activities about that. But yeah. Yeah, so maybe if I could ask Jude to give us a bit sort of update on what's been happening in January, SIP 15, SIP 20.
Sure. So SIP 15, parts of SIP 18 and SIP 20 all activate at the same time. The vote passed to activate all three of these, so that's awesome. We are currently doing testing on it, and we keep finding problems here and there. There's unfortunately no way to get a time estimate as to when all the problems will be found. That's just the nature of problems. You don't anticipate that they'll be there until you discover them. But we're working diligently to make sure everything is operational. One thing I'm doing right now is doing a dress rehearsal on both the testnet and the mainnet to make sure the system can transition to 2.1 seamlessly. I know that Bryce, who's on this call right here, is working on, as well as Aaron, is working on some fixes to the type system that make it safer to interact with trait definitions and trait concretizations across the 2.1 epoch barrier. So things of that nature just keep getting discovered. Once we're confident that we have discovered the ones that at least are likely to arise in practice, then we can merge the develop branch to the master branch and then pick a release height at which point the rules will activate. But again, slow and steady wins the day here, because we got to make sure that that chain's not going to die in the process, and that there's no show-stopping bugs that arise when the system is live, because no one wants that.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks a lot. So yeah, thanks for all the work from the code devs in January. Lots of testings and checking. Hopefully, we're getting ready. I think RPC3 is out, right? And that's the one you guys are sort of doing the testing, finding bugs on.
That's right. We hope to have RC4 out today sometime.
Oh, cool. Okay, cool. Great. Okay, yeah. So that's sort of the highlights of what's happened in January. So lots going on in the SIP world. Yeah. So let's move on to section 3. So just in addition to sort of the sort of more technical, fundamental sort of blockchain level stuff, at the same time, there are efforts sort of around SIP too. So some of the stuff I'm doing, so just want to give people sort of in the loop that this month, so I have found 15 willing contributors, and actually many of them on this call. So thank you for coming. So yeah, so lots of contributors and is growing, and we are discussing how we can make the SIP editors committee work well and efficient in practice with a little bit more procedures and processes within the SIP editor community. And also some SIP editors and are less technical. Some are more technical. So we're sort of looking to how we can help each other out and maybe find other people who's written SIP before to come and do workshop to sort of upskill everybody in the SIP editors community, because we want every SIP editor to grow, be more knowledgeable over time. We can and then teach other SIP editors. So we have more and more people as SIP editors to help prepare for the future SIPs to come. So we want this group to be scalable for lots of incoming SIP from the likes of burners in the community. And these group of people are also facilitating the development of those community SIPs or any SIPs, or maybe the education or amplification of the SIPs. So we really want to grow this group, and it is my biggest focus in this quarter and next quarter to really help shape this committee. So if anybody want to join, please let me know. And other efforts such as SBTC, I think we want to get early engagement and feedback. Anything from the community, I'll work with Jenny and various other people to try and get those feedback to the developers. But yeah, just early community engagement. If anybody got thoughts or comments, improvement, found some bugs or whatever, it's a sort of I will try and facilitate that too. And other things that I will be working on, giving more focus is the sort of facilitation of those impactful SIPs like mining decentralization one, dust mining, or whichever route that we take. But it seems like the dust mining is the current most favorite route that we want to try and attempt. So Vernus SIP, BNS, if there's a SIP, maybe there's not, but yeah, I think any amplification or facilitation that I can do, yeah, those will be my focus too over the coming month. So yeah, so just keep everybody in the loop of what's going on outside of those actual documentations of SIPs. So this is also a call for editors. So if anybody is interested in contributing towards the first step of the SIP process, please let me know. So like I said before, it'll be like sort of technical consultants or mentors or reviewers of actual SIPs, or maybe people even just welcoming community members to identify ideas in the community and getting that idea moved on with the help of other technical guys even. So it is a sort of, I'm trying to make that SIP editors committee more proactive, more inclusive, and more trying to facilitate really the SIP proposing process. And like I said, it's the first step in the sort of 3 key groups, the SIP editors. So it is pretty critical. We already have caps in place. We have steering committee in place, and this is the one that I'm trying to sort out for the governance process. So please join and shout out to all the people who are on this SIP editors committee. Werner, Algorithm, Dotman, Across, Sleepy, Cargo, Kaylee, Benaya, Jack, Raphael, J2P2, Tix, Kyle, Janet, Chad, Crypto Dude. So all these people have expressed their willingness to help out. And so this is pretty important because they don't have to do anything, but there are good willing people in the community who are willing to lend their time to help this Stacks governance process. So thank you so much, guys. And I see many new people in the community on this call, so please join us. And you can find the conversation of SIP editors in the Stacks Discord on the governance channel. So that's where we'll be, well, even like CAPS and steering committee, those are the public channel. You can put out your thoughts. So yeah, so in addition to other stuff, just want to sort of point to people that I've sort of done a sort of SIP residency self-reporting. So past 6 months, I've given myself a little bit of review, and also I'll be sort of more importantly, I guess, is what's sort of the coming 6 months sort of targets and what I will be doing and measurable outcomes. So this help increase transparency, accountability, and collaboration. So if you have any thoughts about what I should or shouldn't be doing, it is free for you to comment on GitHub, and I'll definitely take those comments into account in how I shape out the next 6 months with the foundation. So that's my GitHub thing. So yeah, so that's it. So I just want to leave the open floor to people. If any steering committee got any comments, or if any community guys got any comments. I see a BNS, I see a guy from BNS on the call. Yeah, great to see people from the BNS community coming in new here. So yeah. So the floor is open. So anybody want to discuss anything, please unmute or raise your hand. Okay, no problem. So let's check. So next upcoming SIPCO. So next week, as you know, we want SIPCOs, although it is about the SIP itself, but we're also gonna touch on how we can facilitate the early SIP engagement. So if you didn't know, we actually have a SBTC resident started already, Andrew from the SIPCoin community. So yeah, next week I'll invite him up to talk about the business development and partnership side, but also like how the SIP community can perhaps help and how we can collaborate with Andrew during his sort of his residency. So please join next Friday, 11 a.m. EST too. Yeah, so thanks everybody for coming, and see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.